I stood in a crowded backyard holding a paper plate loaded with smoked ribs, when the woman next door told her entire family I was her boyfriend. We had never gone on a single date. We had never held hands, and I barely even knew her. Before I tell you how this lie saved my life, please take a quick second to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily stories. That single subscription helps me prove that quiet voices deserve to be heard. My name is Julian, and at 34 years old, I was a man who felt entirely invisible to the world. 2 years ago, my marriage ended when my former wife told me that living with me was like sharing a room with a piece of furniture. I was functional and present, but I never actually occupied any space in her heart. Instead of fighting for her, I did what I always do when the pain becomes too loud, because I simply went completely silent. I retreated into a quiet rental house with a tiny wooden deck and a low fence that divided my property from the yard next door. That was where I first saw Madeline, a woman who seemed to carry her own sunshine even on the darkest mornings. Every single day at exactly 7:15, she would step onto her grass with a warm mug in her hands and wave directly at me. She did not wait for me to acknowledge her first. She just waved anyway. That daily greeting became the only anchor in my routine. But then a beautiful mystery began 8 months ago. Every Saturday morning, I would open my front door to find a small token left quietly on my porch railing. Sometimes it was a fresh loaf of cinnamon bread, sometimes a jar of sweet peach preserves, or even a tiny green plant. There was never a signature, but the scent of sweet vanilla always gave her secret identity away. I kept every single one of those 34 gifts like they were precious treasures, constantly wondering why she cared about a silent neighbor. The answer finally arrived 3 days before the gathering, when a soft knock sounded on my front door for the very first time. Madeline stood there looking incredibly anxious as she explained that her family needed help setting up tables for an upcoming weekend gathering. I agreed instantly without even thinking about why she asked me. The drive to the countryside home of her parents was quiet, but the property itself was beautiful and filled with the aroma of charcoal smoke. As I stood there organizing the final lawn decorations, Madeline walked out of the house and glided across the grass toward me. She slid her arm through mine with a level of comfort that felt entirely natural, yet it sent a jolt straight to my heart. She looked at her father and loudly announced that I was the boyfriend she had been describing. The world stopped spinning as 20 relatives turned to examine me, but I quietly chose to nod and play along with her strange game. After the final guests departed and the string lights began to flicker, Madeline and I sat quietly in my vehicle. She revealed that the heart of her father was failing, and his time on this earth was rapidly running out. His final wish was to see his daughter happy and protected by a man he could truly trust. She chose me because our quiet morning interactions had shown her my true character, and she trusted me completely to help her protect her family. When I returned to my empty kitchen that night, I stared at the stale loaf of bread on my counter and felt something shift. I was not angry at Madeline for pulling me into her family drama, but I was absolutely terrified. I realized that I no longer wanted our relationship to be a performance. We continued the arrangement, but the fake boundaries we established began to crumble with each passing week as we spent more time together. I began crossing the property line every weekend to help the father of Madeline repair the wooden steps of his porch, listening to his stories. I sat with her mother during the quiet evenings, learning about the history of their family. Each gesture felt less like an act and more like the life I had always wanted. Her protective brother Weston eventually confronted me to ask if my feelings were real, and my honest answer earned his hard hand in friendship. Not long after, the father of Madeline collapsed, and we rushed to the hospital, sitting in the waiting room for 6 long hours. When the old man finally opened his eyes, he placed our hands together with a faint smile. He whispered that he knew we were pretending at first, but he also knew love would eventually follow. The old man recovered slowly, and during those quiet months of healing, our performance naturally transitioned into a very real romance. We did not make any grand announcements to the world, because the people who mattered already saw the truth in our eyes. I stopped searching for secret packages on my porch, because I was now welcome inside her home. The old wooden fence that once divided our properties was finally replaced by a gate we built together. 1 year after that first fateful afternoon, The family gathered once again under the same string lights for another beautiful summer celebration. When Madeline took my hand and introduced me as her boyfriend to her father, there was no fear in her voice. I held my plate steady, knowing exactly where I belonged, because love is not about grand speeches or loud promises. True love is built quietly in the spaces between us, waiting for the right moment to open the gate.